A man stands in fire, not running, not screaming. Just standing, the cabin burns around him. 8 years of silence, 8 years of hiding, turning to ash and ember. He doesn't flinch, doesn't mourn. The flames climb higher. The wood cracks like old bones breaking. He holds a match in his calloused hand. He lit this himself. Behind him, the mountain stretches dark and silent, the place where broken men go to disappear, where he learned that solitude is just another word for slow dying. Ahead, far below in the valley, smoke rises from a different chimney. A farm, a woman, a boy, a debt that will swallow them whole in 30 days. He doesn't know them yet, but he will. The cabin collapses. Sparks scatter like stars. Ezra Flint turns his back on the wreckage, mounts his horse, and rides down toward a land that isn't his, toward a fight that isn't his, toward people who will teach him what he forgot on that mountain. Some things are worth burning for. Some things are worth staying for. And the hardest choice isn't leaving. It's coming back. The field was dying. Nora Ashford stood at the edge of it. Corn stalks brown and brittle. Apple trees bearing fruit the size of walnuts. The west pasture cracked like old leather. She knew why, had known for 2 years. The envelope in her hand felt heavier than it should. White paper, black ink. 90 days to pay $2,400 or lose everything Matthias had built. Everything she had kept alive since he died. Her hands didn't shake. They'd stopped shaking 18 months ago. Around the time she realized crying didn't fix irrigation lines. Mama. Ellis stood behind her, 12 years old. Matthias's eyes, her stubborn jaw. Dirt under his fingernails and a shovel twice. His height propped against his shoulder. I found it, he said. She turned. Found what? The break. Where the pipe collapsed, just like you said. Below the second drainage post. Of course he had, because she'd walked him through it last spring. Shown him the topography maps Matthias had drawn before the accident. Taught him to read water the way his father had taught her. She folded the bank letter, slipped it into her apron pocket. How deep did you get? Ellis looked at his hands. Blistered. Raw. 4 feet. Maybe. The pipe was at 7. Come inside, she said. Wash up, but I can, Ellis. He stopped. Shoulders tight. The way boys get when they're trying to be men and someone reminds them they're not. She waited. He set the shovel down. Followed her to the house. The kitchen smelled like lye soap and burnt coffee. Nora pumped water into the basin. Cold. Clean. She handed Ellis a rag. You can't dig it alone, she said. I know. And I can't either. He scrubbed his hands. Didn't look at her. Then what do we do? She didn't answer right away, because the truth was exactly what Vernon Hayes wanted her to say. Sell. Take his $3 an acre. Walk away before the bank took it for nothing. We figure it out, she said. Ellis looked up. How? I don't know yet, which was the truth. And the truth was all she had left to give him. Vernon Hayes arrived on a Tuesday. Nora saw the dust from his automobile a mile out. Black Ford. Chrome gleaming. The kind of car a man drives when he wants people to know he owns things. She met him at the gate. Vernon stepped out, suit pressed, hat tilted just so. Smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Ashford, she didn't offer her hand. Mr. Hayes, he looked past her. At the field, at the withered corn, at the orchard where apples hung like regrets. I heard you received correspondence from the bank, he said. I did. 90 days is not much time. No, I want to help. She waited. Because Vernon Hayes had never helped anyone in his life. Not without taking more than he gave. My offer stands, he said. $3 per acre. Cash. Today. You walk away free and clear. The land is worth 12. When it produces, yes. He gestured at the field, but it doesn't. Hasn't for 2 years. And without capital to repair your irrigation. I know what's wrong with the irrigation. Vernon smiled. Of course you do. Matthias taught you well. But knowing and fixing are different things, aren't they? She felt Ellis step onto the porch behind her. Watching, thank you for the offer, Nora said. But no. Vernon adjusted his hat. 90 days, Mrs. Ashford. That's all you have. After that, the bank forecloses. And when they do, I'll buy it from them for $2 an acre. Maybe less. He got back in his car. The engine purred. Expensive. Quiet. He leaned out the window. Think of the boy. He deserves better than watching you lose. Everything his father worked for. Then he drove away. Nora stood there until the dust settled. Ellis came down off the porch. We're not selling. No, so what do we do? She looked at the field. At the place where the earth dipped slightly, where water pooled wrong after rain, where the main line had collapsed under its own weight 2 winters ago. We pray someone knows how to fix cast iron pipe, she said. And we hope they're willing to work for nothing. Ellis was quiet a moment then. That's not a very good plan, no, Nora said. It's not. The saloon in town was called the Anchor, which was ironic, because no one who drank there was anchored to anything. Ezra Flint sat at the far end of the bar corner, stool, back to the wall, hat pulled low. The barkeep had served him without asking his name. Good. He didn't plan to give it. He'd come down from the mountain for supplies. Gunpowder, shaving soap, salt, the things a man couldn't make or trap or grow at 8,000 feet. The plan was simple. Buy what he needed. Leave before anyone remembered his face. Except then he heard the voices. 2 men. Round table near the back. Leaning close the way men do when they're discussing something they don't want overheard. Which meant Ezra could hear every word. 2 more months, the first man said. Vernon Hayes. Ezra recognized him from the Ford outside. The Ashford woman won't make the payment. Can't. Not with that field producing nothing, the second man chuckled. Silas Brennan. Lean. Sharp-eyed. The kind of man who smiles when he lies. You tell her she needed to replace the whole system? Of course, and? She didn't believe me. But it doesn't matter. She can't afford it either way. How much is the land worth? 14,000. Maybe more. Best soil in the valley. Once the irrigation's fixed. And you're offering? 3,600. Silas whistled low. That's cold, Vernon. That's business. They drank. Quiet a moment. Then Silas. What if she figures out she only needs to fix 50 feet of pipe? What if someone tells her? Vernon shrugged. Who would? Everyone who looked at it works for me. And the ones who don't won't cross me. Still. If she won't. Women don't understand infrastructure. Matthias did, but he's gone. And she's just trying to keep her head above water until she drowns. They laughed, not loud. Just enough Ezra set his glass down. He'd come to town for supplies. Not for this, he paid. Left. Walked out into the October cold, but he didn't leave. The Ashford farm was 5 miles north. Ezra rode past it the next morning. Not because he planned to stop, because it was on the way back to the mountain. And he told himself he was just curious, just wanted to see. He pulled his horse up at the fence line. The field spread out below. Corn dead. Orchard struggling, but the land itself, good God. The land was perfect, clay loam. Natural grade. Water table close enough to tap without drilling deep. The kind of soil men fought wars over. And it was dying. Not from drought, not from poor management. From a collapsed pipe. Ezra could see it from the fence. The way the ground dipped. The way water sat too long in the low spot after rain. The way the western field looked waterlogged 1 week. And bone dry the next 50 feet of pipe. Maybe 60. That's all it would take. He sat there on his horse, watching, and he thought about Matthias Ashford. 8 years ago, Ezra had been younger then. Stupid, chasing a wounded elk too far into the high country. Got himself gored. Infection setting in by the time he stumbled down to the Ashford place. Half dead. Matthias had taken him in, cleaned the wound, fed him, let him sleep in the barn for 3 days, while the fever broke. Never asked his name, never asked for payment. Just, you need anything else before you go? Ezra had said no, and he'd gone back to the mountain, and he'd never paid that debt. He looked at the field again. At the place where the pipe had failed, at the house where smoke curled from the chimney. Then he turned his horse toward the farm. Nora was feeding the chickens when she heard hooves. She looked up. A man on horseback, coming up the track, slow, deliberate, not Vernon. This man rode like he'd been born in the saddle, like the horse was part of him. She set the feed bucket down, wiped her hands on her apron. Ellis appeared on the porch. Who is that? I don't know. The man stopped at the gate, dismounted, took his hat off. Long hair, graying, tied back, beard down to his chest, skin like old leather, eyes the color of creek stones. He didn't look like he'd been to town in years. Ma'am, he said. His voice was rough. Like he didn't use it much. Nora waited. My name's Ezra Flint. She didn't recognize it. 8 years ago, he said. Your husband pulled me off a mountainside half dead. Kept me alive for 3 days. Sent me on my way when I could walk. Nora's throat tightened. Because Matthias had done that. More than once. Brought in strangers. Patched them up. Never mentioned it. Matthias is gone, she said. I know. I'm sorry. She folded her arms. What do you want? Ezra looked past her. At the field. At the place where the earth sagged. Your irrigation line, he said. It's collapsed. Main pipe. Below the second drainage post. 7 feet down. Maybe 7.5. Nora went still. You've known for 2 years, he continued. But you can't dig it out alone. Can't hold the trench and manage the upstream pressure and relay the pipe by yourself. She stared at him. How do you? I can see it from here. The grade, the way the water sits. I know pipe. Ellis stepped down off the porch. Stopped beside his mother. Ezra looked at the boy. Then back at Nora. I can fix it, he said. Nora didn't move. A lot of men have told me they could fix it, she said. I'm sure. They looked at it. Told me I needed to replace the whole system. $5,000. Maybe more. Ezra shook his head. You don't. How do you know? Because I've been fixing broken things in the mountains for 8 years. Water doesn't lie. And your water says the problem is localized. 50 feet of pipe. 60 at most. The rest of the system is sound. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But wanting didn't make it true. What do you want in return, she asked. Nothing. Nothing. Your husband saved my life. I'm paying that back. Nora laughed. Short. Sharp. Nobody works for nothing, Mr. Flint. I do. Why? He looked at her. Steady. No flinch. No hesitation. Because I owe him. And because you're standing on land that shouldn't be dying. And because I heard Vernon Hayes in town last night, talking about how you don't understand infrastructure. Her jaw tightened. I understand infrastructure just fine. I know you do. That's why I'm here. Ellis spoke up. Can you really fix it? Ezra looked at the boy. Yes. How long? 3 weeks to dig and relay the pipe. Another week to test it. We have 90 days to pay the bank, Nora said. If the pipe is fixed but the crops aren't in, we still lose the farm. How much do you owe? $2,400. Ezra nodded. Calculating. If we fix the line in 3 weeks, you can get a late planting in. Corn, maybe winter wheat. Won't be a full harvest. But it'll be something. Something isn't enough. It's more than you have now. She hated that he was right. If you're lying, she said. If you're working for Vernon. I'm not. How do I know that? You don't, but you're out of options. And I'm offering one. The wind picked up, cold. Smelling like snow. Nora looked at Ellis, at his blistered hands, at the hope trying not to show on his face. Then back at Ezra. If you fix this, she said, you teach my son how you did it. So next time he can do it himself. Ezra didn't hesitate. Deal. Where will you sleep? Barn's fine. We don't have money to pay you. I don't want money. Then what do you want? He looked at her a long time. I want to stop owing your husband, he said. And for the first time in 2 years, Nora thought, maybe, just maybe, this might work. All right, she said. You can start tomorrow. Ezra put his hat back on, led his horse toward the barn. Ellis watched him go, then looked up at his mother. Do you trust him? Nora watched Ezra disappear into the barn, watched the way he moved, careful, deliberate, like a man who'd spent years alone and learned to make every action count. I don't know, she said. But I trust that he's not Vernon Hayes. Ellis grinned. First time in months. That's good enough for me, he said. Lloyd appeared at the barn that night. Old man, 80 if he was a day. Ran the general store in town. Carried a cloth-wrapped bundle under one arm. Ezra was brushing down his horse when the door creaked open. You the one fixing the Ashford pipe? Lloyd asked. I am. Lloyd set the bundle on a hay bale. Unwrapped it. Bread, cheese. Apples. Figured you might be hungry. Ezra looked at the food. Then at Lloyd. Why? Because Nora Ashford's got enough to worry about without feeding a stranger. And because I want to tell you something. Ezra waited. Lloyd sat down, bones creaking. Vernon Hayes isn't just a banker. He's a vulture. 3 years ago, he did this same thing to the Taylor family. Told them their well was contaminated. Needed total replacement. They couldn't afford it. Lost their land. Vernon bought it for pennies. The well wasn't contaminated. No. It needed a new pump. $40. Ezra felt something cold settle in his chest. Nora know this? She knows. But knowing and proving are different things. Vernon's careful. Never leaves evidence. And the men who inspect the properties work for him. Not anymore, Ezra said. Lloyd smiled. Slow. That's what I was hoping you'd say, he stood. Bones creaking again. You need anything. You come see me. And Mr. Flint? Yeah? Don't let Vernon scare you off. He'll try, but that woman in there? She's tougher than she looks. And that boy? He's smart as hell. They just need someone who isn't trying to rob them blind. I'm not. I know. That's why I brought you supper. Lloyd left. Ezra ate the bread, the cheese, the apples, and he thought about vultures. And how satisfying it would be to make one choke. The next morning came cold and clear. Ezra was already at the site when Nora brought coffee. 2 tin cups. Steam rising, she handed him one without a word. He took it, nodded thanks. Ellis came out a few minutes later, bundled in a coat too big for him. Matthias's coat? Where do we start? The boy asked. Ezra set his cup down, pulled out a length of string and 4 wooden stakes. First, he said. We measure. He walked to the second drainage post, paced off 52 feet. Drove a stake. This is where we dig. Ellis looked at the ground. How do you know? Because the grade flattens here. See, he pointed. Water flows downhill, always. When the grade flattens, water slows. When it slows, it presses on the pipe. If the pipe's old or weak or installed on soft ground, it sags. Then it cracks. Ellis nodded, watching. Learning. How wide do we dig? 4 feet. We need room to work. How deep? 7.5 feet. Ellis swallowed. That's a lot of dirt. Yes. How long will it take? Ezra looked at Nora. Then back at Ellis, with 3 of us. 2 weeks. Maybe less. Nora spoke for the first time. I've dug this trench before. Twice. Got down 4 feet and couldn't go farther. The dirt kept collapsing, and I couldn't brace it and dig at the same time. Ezra nodded. That's because you were doing it alone. This time, you're not. He handed Ellis a shovel. Start at the edge. Dig straight down. When you hit 2 feet, I'll show you how to brace the walls. Ellis took the shovel. Looked at his mother. She nodded. He started digging. By midday, they'd opened a trench, 4 feet long and 3 feet deep. Ellis's hands were blistered again. But he didn't complain. Nora worked beside him, hauling dirt. Piling it away from the hole, Ezra worked the deep end, chipping through clay. Exposing the pipe, they didn't talk much, didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. At one point, Ellis stopped, leaned aslant on his shovel. Ezra, where'd you learn all this? Everywhere. That's not an answer, Ezra smiled. First time since he'd arrived. You're right, it's not. He climbed out of the trench, sat on the edge. Breathing hard, I grew up on a ranch. Learned irrigation from my father. Then I worked on the railroad. Learned grading and drainage. Then I went into the mountains. Learned how to fix things when there's no store for 100 miles. Why'd you go to the mountains? Nora's voice. Quiet, but firm. Ezra looked at her. Because I needed to be alone, he said. For 8 years? Yes. That's a long time to be alone, it is. She waited, like she was expecting more. But Ezra didn't give it. He stood, picked up his shovel. Let's keep going. We're losing daylight. Ellis looked at his mother. She shook her head slightly. Don't push. They went back to work. By the end of the first week, the trench was 6 feet deep. By the end of the second, they'd exposed the pipe, cast iron. 6 feet long, cracked clean through at the joint. Ezra crouched in the trench, running his hands over the break. What happened? Ellis asked from above. Ground settled. Pipe didn't. Stress broke it. Can you fix it? Yes, but we need a new section. 6 feet, 4-inch diameter. Cast iron. Nora leaned over the edge. How much will that cost? $40. Maybe 50. She was quiet. Ezra looked up. You don't have it? No. He climbed out. Wiped his hands on his pants. I do. Mr. Flint, Ezra, you've already given us 2 weeks of work. I can't take your money. You're not taking it. I'm buying pipe. Why? Because Matthias saved my life. And because this land is too good to die. And because I made a deal. Nora stared at him. Ellis looked between them. Finally, Nora said, if you buy the pipe, I pay you back. With interest. When we sell the harvest, Ezra shook his head. No interest. Then I won't accept it. He smiled. Slow. You drive a hard bargain, Mrs. Ashford. I learned from a good teacher, your husband, my husband. Ezra nodded. All right. Interest. 2%, 5-3. Deal. They shook hands. Ellis grinned. You two argue like you've known each other for years. Nora pulled her hand back. We don't argue. We negotiate. What's the difference? Arguing is when you fight to win. Negotiating is when you fight to build something together. Ezra looked at her, really looked. And for the first time since Matthias died, Nora didn't look away. Vernon Hayes came back on a Thursday. Different car this time, black Chrysler. Newer. Chenier. He pulled up while Ezra was hauling the new pipe section into place. Ellis guiding it down with ropes. Nora steadying the sides of the trench. Vernon got out, stood at the edge. Watched Mrs. Ashford. Nora didn't stop working. Mr. Hayes, I see you found help. I did. May I ask who this is? Ezra climbed out of the trench. Stood. 6'2", broad shoulders. Covered in mud and clay. Ezra Flint. Vernon extended a hand. Ezra didn't take it. Vernon lowered his hand, smiled. Mr. Flint. I don't believe we've met. We haven't. Are you from around here? No. Where then? The mountain. Vernon's smile tightened. I see. And you're helping Mrs. Ashford out of the kindness of your heart? I'm paying a debt. How noble. Vernon looked at the trench. At the new pipe. At the progress they'd made. I hope you know what you're doing. Irrigation systems are delicate. One mistake and you could flood the entire property. I know what I'm doing, do you? Because I had 3 engineers look at this system. All of them said it needed complete replacement. Ezra met his eyes. Then you hired the wrong engineers. The air went still. Vernon's smile disappeared. Be careful. Mr. Flint, this land is under financial obligation to my bank. If your repairs cause damage, Mrs. Ashford will be liable. And she doesn't have the resources to cover that liability. The repairs won't cause damage. You sound very certain I am. Vernon looked at Nora. Mrs. Ashford, I urge you to reconsider. My offer still stands. $3 an acre. You walk away clean. No risk. Nora climbed out of the trench. Stood beside Ezra. No thank you, Mr. Hayes. You're making a mistake, maybe. But it's mine to make. Vernon's jaw tightened. 60 days, Mrs. Ashford. That's all you have left. And when you fail, and you will fail, don't come crying to me for mercy. He got back in his car. The engine roared. He left. The dust settled slowly. Ellis broke the silence. I don't like him. Nobody does, Nora said. Ezra looked at her. He's going to try to stop us. I know. You sure you want to keep going? She looked at the trench. At the new pipe gleaming in the sun. At Ellis standing there with dirt on his face and hope in his eyes. Yes, she said. I'm sure. Ezra nodded. Then let's finish this. It took 3 days to install the new section, lower it into the trench, align it with the existing pipe. Seal the joints with molten lead and oakum. Ezra worked the solder. Ellis held the pipe steady. Nora monitored the alignment with a level and plumb line. On the 3rd day, they backfilled the trench, dirt, then gravel, then more dirt, tamped it down. Layer by layer, by sunset, the trench was gone. Only a slight mound remained. And that would settle in a few weeks. Ezra stood, stretched. Back cracking. Now we test it, he said. Ellis looked nervous. What if it doesn't work? Then we dig it back up and fix it. And if it does work? Ezra looked at Nora. Then you plant. She walked to the pump house. Hand on the valve. Ready, she called. Ezra nodded. She turned the valve. Nothing happened for a moment, then a rumble. Deep underground. Water moving through the pipes, through the main line, through the new section. Ellis held his breath. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Then water burst from the outlet at the Westfield edge. Clean. Strong, steady, Ellis shouted. Jumped. It works. Nora stood, hands still on the valve, staring at the water. 2 years, 2 years of watching this land die. Of lying awake wondering if she'd lose everything. Of trying to be strong for Ellis when she felt like she was drowning. And now water. She turned the valve off. The flow stopped. She walked to where Ezra stood. Thank you, she said. Her voice broke on the second word. Ezra looked at her. Saw the tears she was fighting. Saw the exhaustion. The relief. The fear that it might still not be enough. You're welcome, he said quietly. Ellis ran up, grabbed Ezra's hand. Shook it hard. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. Ezra corrected. All three of us. Ellis beamed. Nora wiped her eyes, cleared her throat. I'll make supper, she said. You're both filthy. So are you, Ellis pointed out. She looked down. Covered in mud, head to toe. She laughed. First real laugh in 2 years. Fair enough, she said. We'll all clean up. Then we eat. They walked back to the house together. The sun setting behind them. The field waiting. And for the first time since Matthias died, Nora Ashford thought maybe, just maybe, they were going to make it. That night after Ellis went to bed, Nora brought Ezra a plate of food in the barn. He was sitting on a hay bale. Oiling his tools, she set the plate down beside him. You didn't have to, he said. I know. She sat down. Not close, but not far either. They were quiet a moment. Then Nora spoke. Why'd you really come down from the mountain? Ezra didn't look up. Kept working the oil into the shovel blade, I told you. I owed Matthias. That's part of it. But it's not all of it. He was quiet a long time. Finally, I heard Vernon Hayes in the saloon, talking about you, like you were already gone. Like you'd already lost. Like it was funny. Nora's jaw tightened, and I thought about Matthias, Ezra continued. How he pulled me off that mountain when I was half dead. How he didn't ask questions. Didn't ask for anything. Just helped because it needed doing. He set the shovel down. Looked at her, and I thought, if Matthias were alive, he'd fix this himself. But he's not, so I had to. Nora held his gaze. You didn't have to, I did. Why? Because I spent 8 years hiding, and I'm tired of it. She didn't ask what he was hiding from, didn't push. Just nodded. Well, she said, I'm glad you stopped hiding. She stood, walked to the door, paused. Ezra, yeah? Tomorrow we start planting. If you're still willing. I am. Good. She left. Ezra sat there in the dark, listening to the horses breathe, listening to the wind, listening to the sound of water running through pipes underground, and he thought, maybe this wasn't hiding. Maybe this was something else. They started planting on day 32. 60 days left. The math was brutal. Plant now. Hope for germination in 2 weeks. Growth in 6. Harvest by day 85. Sell before day 90. No margin for error. No room for weather. Or pests. Or bad luck. Just work. Ezra walked the west field at dawn. Boot prints in the damp soil. Testing the earth the way a man tests ice. Before crossing a frozen river, the ground was ready. Nora came out with seed bags. Heavy canvas. Corn. Winter wheat. The last of Matthias's stock from before he died. She set them down. This is all we have. Ezra looked at the bags. Did the calculation in his head. It's enough for 60% coverage. And the other 40%? Stays fallow. Ellis arrived carrying a hand-crank seeder. Matthias's seeder. Older than the boy himself. Does it work? Ezra asked. It did 2 years ago. Test it. Ellis filled the hopper, cranked the handle. Seed scattered in a perfect arc. It works, Nora said. Ezra nodded. Then let's go. They worked in lines. Ezra drove the furrows with a horse-drawn plow. Straight, even, deep enough for the seed, shallow enough to close. Ellis followed with the seeder, walking the furrows, cranking, scattering. Nora came last, covering the seed with a rake, tamping it down gently, 1 row at a time, 1 furrow at a time, 1 day at a time. By the end of the first week, they'd planted 40 acres. By the end of the second, 60. The west field was a grid of fresh-turned earth, dark, rich. Waiting, Ezra stood at the edge of it. Sweat-soaked, exhausted. Ellis came up beside him. You think it'll grow in time? I don't know. That's not very reassuring, Ezra smiled. No, it's not, but you still think we should try? Yes, why? Ezra looked at the boy, 12 years old, hands rough from work, eyes sharp from watching his mother fight alone for too long. Because trying is better than giving up, Ezra said. And because your father would have tried. So we do too. Ellis nodded. Quiet a moment, then. My father liked you, Ezra turned. You weren't even born when I met him, I know. But Mama told me. She said he came home that week and told her he'd met a man who didn't ask for anything. Didn't want anything. Just thanked him and left. Ezra's throat tightened. She said my father respected that more than anything. A man who could say thank you and walk away. Your father was a good man. Yeah. Ellis kicked at the dirt. I miss him, I know. Do you miss anyone? The question landed like a stone in still water. Ezra looked at the mountains, at the line where the trees met the sky, at the place he'd been hiding for 8 years. Yes, he said quietly. I do. Ellis waited, like he thought Ezra might say more. But Ezra didn't, so the boy went back to work. And Ezra stood there, watching the field, thinking about the people he'd left behind when he ran, and wondering if they missed him too. The irrigation valve stuck on day 45. Ellis found it first. Tried to turn it, couldn't. He called for Ezra. They crouched beside it, metal wheel, rusted, frozen in place from years of mineral buildup. What do we do? Ellis asked. We free it, how? Ezra pulled a small bottle from his coat. Oil. Dark. Thick. Smelled like pine tar. He dripped it onto the valve threads. Worked it in with his fingers. Now we wait. For how long? 30 minutes. Let the oil penetrate. Ellis sat down. Watched. You always carry oil? Always. Why? Because everything rusts eventually. And rust doesn't care if you're prepared or not. Ellis grinned. Is that mountain wisdom? That's common sense. They sat in silence, the sun climbing, warming the earth. After a while, Ellis spoke. Can I ask you something? You just did. Can I ask you something else? Ezra smiled. Go ahead. Why'd you really leave the mountain? Ezra's smile faded. He looked at the valve, at the oil slowly working its way into the threads. I heard your mother was in trouble, he said carefully, and I owed your father. That's all. That's not all. The boy was sharp. Too sharp. Ezra met his eyes. What do you think the reason is? Ellis shrugged. I think you were lonely, and I think helping us made you feel less lonely. Ezra stared at him. 12 years old and already reading people like maps. Maybe, Ezra said finally. Maybe you're right. Ellis nodded, satisfied. Ezra reached for the valve. Turned, it moved just a fraction. But it moved. See, he said. Patience works. Is that mountain wisdom? That's common sense. Ellis laughed, and for a moment, Ezra felt something shift in his chest. Something warm. Something he hadn't felt in 8 years. Something like belonging. Margot Hayes appeared on a Saturday. Nora was hanging laundry when the automobile pulled up. Black. Expensive. Vernon's car, but Vernon wasn't driving. Margot was. She stepped out. Slim. Elegant. Hair pinned back. Dress pressed. Everything about her screamed money, except her eyes. Her eyes looked tired. Nora set the laundry basket down. Waited. Margot walked to the fence. Stopped. Mrs. Ashford, Mrs. Hayes. They stood there. 2 women. 2 different worlds. I need to speak with you, Margot said. About my husband. Nora's jaw tightened. I'm not interested in anything Vernon has to say. It's not from him. It's about him. That was different. Nora wiped her hands on her apron. Come inside. They sat at the kitchen table. Nora poured coffee. Margot wrapped her hands around the cup like she was cold. 3 years ago, Margot began. Vernon did this same thing to a family named Taylor. Told them their well was contaminated. Said they needed complete replacement. Thousands of dollars. Nora leaned forward. They couldn't afford it. Lost their farm. Vernon bought it for nothing. And the well? Needed a new pump. $40. Nora's hands curled into fists. Margot reached into her purse, pulled out a leather ledger, set it on the table. This is Vernon's private book. The one he doesn't show the bank auditors. It has everything. Every property he's undervalued. Every inspection he's falsified. Every family he's destroyed. Nora stared at the ledger. Why are you showing me this? Margot looked at her. Really looked, and Nora saw it then. The pain, the shame, the exhaustion of living with a man who measured people in dollars. Because I'm tired, Margot said quietly. Tired of watching him hurt people. Tired of pretending I don't know what he's doing. You could leave him, I could. But then he'd just find another woman to hide behind. Another face to make him look respectable. She pushed the ledger across the table. This is a copy. The original is locked in his office. But this has enough to show the bank what he's been doing. Nora picked up the ledger, opened it page after page of notes. Dates, amounts, properties. The Ashford farm was listed on page 17, irrigation, minor repair needed, estimated cost $50, report filed. Complete system failure. Estimate cost 5,000. Nora's hands shook. He lied. Yes, he's been lying for years. Yes, Nora looked up. Why now? Why help me? Margot was quiet a moment. Because I had a son, she said finally. He was Ellis's age when he died. Influenza. And I watched Vernon refuse to pay for the medicine that might have saved him because it was too expensive. Her voice didn't break. It just went flat. So when I see your boy out there working beside that man from the mountain, fighting to keep what's his, I think, that's what my son should have had. A mother who fought. A chance. She stood. Use the ledger. Stop Vernon. And maybe it'll mean something that I didn't sit quiet this time. Nora stood too. Thank you, Margot nodded. Walked to the door, paused. Mrs. Ashford? Yes, that man. The one helping you, Ezra. Don't let him leave when this is over. Men like that don't come down from mountains for nothing. And they don't stay for nothing either. Then she left. Nora stood there, holding the ledger, holding proof, holding the thing that could destroy Vernon Hayes. And she thought about Margot, about the son who died, about the woman who'd spent years being complicit, until she wasn't. The damage happened on day 50. Ezra found it at dawn. 3 sections of newly planted rows torn up, seeds scattered. Soil churned, not animal tracks. Boot prints. He crouched, studied them. Size 11. Deep tread, fresh. Someone had come in the night, walked through the field, destroyed hours of work. Ellis came running. Stopped. Stared. What happened? Ezra stood, jaw tight. Someone tore it up. Who, I don't know. But that was a lie. Because Ezra knew exactly who. Vernon Hayes didn't get his hands dirty. But he had men who did. Nora arrived. Saw the destruction. Went pale. How much did we lose? Ezra counted the rows. 2 days of planting. Maybe 3. Can we replant? We don't have enough seed. The words hung there. 2 days of work. Gone. 40 days left. And now even less margin than before. Ellis kicked at the dirt. This isn't fair. No, Ezra said. It's not. What do we do? Ezra looked at Nora. We guard the field at night. One of us stays awake. Watches. For how long? Until harvest. Nora shook her head. That's 40 nights. We can't stay awake for 40 nights. We can take shifts. 4 hours each. That's still not enough sleep. No. But it's what we have. Ellis spoke up. I'll take the first watch. No, Nora said immediately. Why not? Because you're 12, so? I can stay awake, Ellis. Mama, I can do this. Nora looked at Ezra. He nodded slightly. She closed her eyes. Fine. But you wake me at midnight, and you don't leave the porch. I won't. That night, Ellis sat on the porch with a rifle across Laflap. Old Winchester. Matthias's gun. He'd never fired it. Hoped he wouldn't have to. The field stretched out before him. Dark. Silent. Horse passed. His eyelids grew heavy. He shook himself awake. Stay awake. Stay awake. Stay a sound. Footsteps hard. Ellis hammered. He stood. Raised the rifle. Who's there? Nothing. Then a shape moved in the darkness. I said, who's there? The shape stepped into the moonlight. Ezra. Ellis lowered the gun. Let out a breath. You scared me. Good. That means you're paying attention. Ezra climbed onto the porch. Sat beside him. You're supposed to be sleeping, Ellis said. Couldn't. Why not? Because you're out here alone. And I don't like it. Ellis looked at him. You think they'll come back? Yes, tonight? Maybe. Maybe not. But eventually, they sat in silence, then Ellis. I'm scared. Ezra nodded. That's smart. You're not scared? I am. You don't look it. That's because I've had practice hiding it. Ellis thought about that. Is that what you did in the mountains? Hide? As Ezra was quiet a long time. Yes, he said finally. That's what I did. From what? From people. From memories. From myself. Did it work? For a while, and then? Ezra looked at the field. At the rows they'd planted. At the destruction someone had caused because they were greedy and cruel. And then I realized hiding doesn't fix anything. It just postpones it. Ellis nodded slowly. They sat together until midnight. Then Nora came out, took the rifle, sent them both to bed. But neither of them slept much. Word spread fast in small towns. By Sunday, half the county knew about the sabotage. Lloyd brought it up at church, not from the pulpit. Just standing outside after service. Loud enough for everyone to hear. Shame what happened to the Ashford place. Someone tore up their field. Right before harvest, people murmured. Heeds turned toward Vernon, standing beside his automobile, Margot beside him, both dressed immaculate. Vernon's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Lloyd continued. Makes you wonder who'd do such a thing. Who'd be that cruel? One of the farmers spoke up. Could have been animals. Could have been, Lloyd agreed. Except animals don't wear size 11 boots. Silence. Vernon got in his car. Drove away, but the damage was done. People were talking. And in a small town, talk mattered. 3 men showed up at the Ashford farm on Monday. Farmers, neighbors, not close friends. But not strangers either. The oldest one spoke. We heard what happened. Nora stood on the porch, wary. And we thought you could use help. I can't pay you. We're not asking for pay. We're asking for a meal. Maybe some of that bread you make. The kind with rosemary. Nora blinked behind her. Ezra stepped out, arms crossed. Watching, the farmer looked at him. You the one who fixed the pipe? I am. Good work. Been watching that field green up. Looks better than it has in years. Ezra nodded. The farmer turned back to Nora. We'll help you replant what got torn up, and we'll help you watch at night. Shifts, so no one has to stay awake alone. Nora's throat tightened. Why? The farmer shrugged. Because Matthias helped me once, when my barn burned. He and half the county came out and rebuilt it in a week. Didn't ask for anything. He looked at the other 2 men. They nodded. So now we help you. Nora wiped her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank us yet. We haven't done anything, but they did. Over the next week, those 3 men brought seed, replanted the damaged rows, took night shifts guarding the field, and slowly, carefully, the farm began to feel less like a fortress and more like a community. It happened on day 60. 30 days left. The crops were growing. Thin. Fragile. But growing. Nora and Ezra stood at the edge of the field, watching the sun set, the sky burning red and gold. We might actually make it, she said quietly. Might. That's the first time you've said that. It's the first time I've believed it. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the exhaustion, the wear. The man who'd given 3 months of his life to people he barely knew. Why are you still here? She asked. Ezra didn't answer right away. I told you. I owed Matthias. You've paid that debt 10 times over. Then maybe I'm staying for a different reason. What reason? He turned. Met her eyes. Because I don't want to go back to the mountain. The words hung there, raw, honest. Nora's breath caught. Why not? Because the mountain is empty. And I'm tired of being empty. She stepped closer. And here I'm not. They stood there, 2 feet apart. The field behind them, the sky burning down. Nora reached out, touched his hand. Just a brush of fingers, nothing more, but it was enough. Ezra looked at her hand, then at her face. Nora, don't, she said softly. Don't say anything that'll make you leave. I'm not leaving, promise? He hesitated. Because promises were dangerous, and he'd broken too many already. But looking at her, at the hope barely restrained in her eyes. I promise, he said. She smiled, small, fragile, like something that might break if you breathed too hard, but it was there. And Ezra felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd kept locked for 8 years, something that felt like hope. The letter came on day 70, 35 days after the pipe was fixed, 20 days before the payment was due. Ellis brought it from town, handed it to his mother. Official. Heavy bank seal. Nora opened it. Ride. Went white. Ezra looked up from the plow he was repairing. What is it? She handed him the letter. Notice of debt reassessment. Due to property improvements and increased land value, your outstanding debt has been recalculated. New amount due, $3,200. Payment deadline remains November 30th. Ezra read it twice. They can't do this. They just did. It's illegal. It's Vernon. Ellis looked between them. What does it mean? Nora sat down on the porch steps, head in her hands. It means even if we harvest everything, even if we sell at top price, we're still $800 short. Silence, the kind that crushes. Ezra crumpled the letter. I have $400 saved, Ezra. No, I'm giving it to you. You've already given us everything. Then I'm giving more. Nora looked up, eyes wet. And the other $400? Where do we get that? No one answered. Because there was no answer. Ellis stood. Walked into the house without a word. Nora watched him go. This is going to break him. No, Ezra said. It's not. How do you know? Because he's your son. And you're the strongest person I've ever met, she laughed. Bitter. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling it. It's about keeping going when you don't. She looked at him. At this man who'd walked down from a mountain, fixed her land, guarded her crops, refused to leave. Why do you believe in us so much? Because I have to believe in something. And you're the best thing I've found. Her breath hitched, and before she could stop herself, she leaned forward, kissed him, quick, soft, desperate, then pulled back. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Ezra pulled her back, kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. When they broke apart, Nora was crying. We're going to lose everything, she whispered. Maybe, and you're still staying? Yes, why? Because I'd rather lose everything with you than have nothing alone. She pressed her forehead to his. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, I know. I love you for it anyway. Ezra went still. Because those words, those 3 words, he hadn't heard them in 8 years, hadn't let himself even think them. And now, I love you too, he said. And meant it. Ellis didn't come to breakfast the next morning. Nora checked his room. Empty. She went to the barn. Not there. Panic rising, she called for Ezra. They searched the property, found him in town at Lloyd's store, standing at the counter, holding something wrapped in cloth. Lloyd saw them coming, shook his head slightly. Nora walked in. Ellis, what are you doing? The boy turned, and she saw it. Matthias's rifle, the Winchester. On the counter. For sale? No, Nora said immediately. Absolutely not, Mama. That was your father's. The only thing of his you have left, I know. Then why? Because it's worth $150. And we need 400. And if we sell the rifle and the old plow and the extra saddle, we can get close. Nora's vision blurred. Ellis, baby, no. It's just a gun, Mama. It's not just a gun. It's metal and wood. And we need money more than we need memory. The words hit like a fist. Ezra stepped forward. Put a hand on the boy's shoulder, Ellis. Listen to me. Your father's rifle isn't going to save the farm, Ellis interrupted. But money will. So I'm selling it. Lloyd cleared his throat. Boy's got a point. Nora spun on him. You stay out of this, can't. He already offered it to me, and I already agreed. She looked at Ellis, at his set jaw, his red eyes. The way he stood like he was 30 instead of 12. Your father would do the same thing, Ellis said quietly. You know he would, and damn it, he was right. Matthias would have sold everything he owned to save the farm. To save his family. Nora sank into a chair. Ezra crouched beside her. Nora, it's his choice. He's 12. He's old enough to know what matters. She looked at Ellis, at her boy, growing up too fast because the world demanded it. Are you sure? She whispered. Ellis nodded. I'm sure. Lloyd counted out bills. 150. As agreed. Ellis took the money, folded it carefully, put it in his pocket, walked past his mother without looking at her. Because if he looked, he'd cry. And he'd decided he was done crying. That night, Nora found Ellis in the barn, sitting in the hayloft. Staring at nothing, she climbed up, sat beside him. They didn't speak for a long time. Finally, I'm proud of you. Ellis's jaw trembled. Don't, why not? Because if you tell me I did the right thing, I'm going to break, and I can't break. Not now. Nora pulled him close. He fought it for a second, then collapsed into her. Sobbing, I miss him, Mama. I miss him so much. I know, baby. I know. I wanted to keep the rifle. I know. They sat there, mother and son, holding each other, while below, Ezra stood in the barn doorway, listening, and he thought about the things people give up for the people they love, and he wondered if he'd ever given up enough. On day 85, the weather turned. Clouds rolled in from the west. Dark, heavy, swollen with rain. Ezra stood in the field, watching the sky. This was it, the test. If the irrigation held through the storm, the crops would survive, would mature, would be ready to harvest in 5 days. If it failed, everything would flood, drown. Nora came out, stood beside him. How bad? She asked. Bad, the pipe? We tested it. It should hold. Should. She looked at him. That's not very reassuring. No, it's not. Thunder rumbled. The first drops hit cold, hard. Within minutes, it was pouring sheets of rain, hammering the earth. Ezra grabbed Nora's hand. Come on. They ran to the pump house. Ellis was already there. Watching the pressure gauge, it's rising, he said. How fast? Fast, Ezra checked the gauge. 40 psi, 50, 60. The pipe was rated for 75, 65, 70. It's going to blow, Ellis said. Not yet. 72, 74. Ezra reached for the release valve. What are you doing? Nora shouted over the rain. If I don't bleed off some pressure, the whole line ruptures. And if you do? We lose water to the east field. But save the west. She grabbed his arm. The west field is where the harvest is, I know. He turned the valve. Water shot out, a jet of it. High pressure. Dangerous. The gauge dropped 70, 68, 65, stabilized. They stood there, soaked, shaking, watching the gauge waiting. The storm raged for 6 hours. When it finally broke, the sun came out, weak, pale but there. They walked to the field, held their breath, and saw the crops standing battered, bent but alive. Ellis let out a whoop, jumped, splashed through mud. Nora covered her mouth. Tears streaming. Ezra just stood there, looking at the field, at what they'd built together. And he thought, this is what it feels like to not be alone. This is what it feels like to matter. Day 86, 4 days until payment, the field was ready. Almost, corn stalks tall, golden, heavy with ears. Wheat bending under its own weight, apples hanging red and full, but ready wasn't harvested, and harvested wasn't sold, and sold wasn't money in the bank. Ezra walked the rows at dawn, checking, counting, doing math that made his chest tight. If they harvested everything, if they sold at market price, if nothing went wrong, they'd have $2,950. Still $250 short. Ellis came out, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What's the count? Close. How close? Not close enough. The boy's shoulders sagged. Ezra put a hand on him. But we're not done yet. What else can we do? We've sold everything. The rifle. The plow. We harvest faster. We sell higher. We fight harder. You sound like Mama. Your mother's a smart woman. Ellis managed a small smile. Yeah, she is. They stood there, man and boy, watching the sun rise over a field they'd saved together. Ezra? Yeah? If we lose. If the bank takes it anyway, I want you to know. We're not losing, but if we do, Ellis, Ezra crouched down. Eye level. We're not losing. You hear me? We've come too far, worked too hard, lost too much. We're not losing now, the boy's eyes shone. Promise? And Ezra knew he shouldn't, because promises were dangerous when you couldn't control the outcome. But looking at this kid, this brave, scared, trying so hard to be strong kid, I promise, Ezra said. Ellis nodded, wiped his eyes. Then let's get to work. They started harvesting at 6, Nora on the corn, twisting ears free, tossing them into bushel baskets. Ellis in the orchard, climbing ladders, picking apples. Gentle, so they didn't bruise. Ezra cutting wheat, long scythe strokes, rhythmic. Steady. By noon, they'd filled 20 baskets. By sunset, 40. The 3 farmers who'd helped replant showed up without being asked. Heard you were harvesting, the oldest one said. Nora looked at them, sweat-soaked, exhausted. I still can't pay you, still don't want pay. Just point us where to work, so they did. And suddenly there were 6 people in the field instead of 3. And the baskets filled twice as fast. Lloyd arrived at dusk with his truck. I'll haul to market. No charge, Lloyd. Don't argue, Nora. You're mean when you argue, she laughed, actual laughter. First time in days, thank you. Save it for when we win. They loaded the truck. Corn, apples, wheat bundled in sheaves. Lloyd drove off as the sun set. Nora stood there, watching the taillights disappear. Ezra came up beside her. You all right? People are helping us. Yes. Why? Because you're worth helping. She looked at him. Or because you are. I didn't do this alone. Neither did I. They stood close. Not touching, but close enough, Ezra? Yeah? After this is over, win or lose. Don't go back to the mountain. His throat tightened. Where would I go? Here. With us, Nora. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I'm just asking you to stay. To be part of this. Whatever this is, he wanted to say yes. God, he wanted to. But the words stuck, because staying meant risking, and risking meant losing. And he'd lost so much already. I'll think about it, he said finally. Which was not yes, but it wasn't no either. And for now, that had to be enough. Lloyd returned at dawn on day 87. 3 days left. He climbed out of the truck. Handed Nora an envelope. She opened it. Counted $2,100. Her hands shook. "This is good," Lloyd said. "Real good. Top price for everything." Nora looked at Ezra. Then at Ellis. "We still need $100. The number hung there. "Impossible. Crushing," Ellis spoke up. "We have more to harvest, the east field." "It's not as full, but it's not enough," Ezra said quietly. "I walked it this morning. Maybe $300 worth. At best, silence, the kind that tastes like defeat." Then Nora straightened. "Then we find another way. I don't know yet. But we have 3 days, and I'm not giving up with 3 days left." She walked into the house. Ellis looked at Ezra. "Is she okay?" "No, but she will be. How do you know?" "Because she's your mother. And she doesn't know how to quit." That afternoon, Margot Hayes came back. Different car this time. Smaller, older, not Vernon's. She got out. Walked to where Nora was sorting apples for a second market run. "Mrs. Ashford." Nora looked up, wary. "Mrs. Hayes." Marga held out another envelope. "This is from me." "Not Vernon." Nora didn't take it. "What is it?" $500. Nora's breath caught. "It's my money. From an account Vernon doesn't know about. I've been saving it for years. For a day when I might need to leave, I can't take this." "You can, and you will." "Why?" Margot's voice cracked. "Just slightly. Because I told you. I had a son, and Vernon let him die. And every day I stay with that man, I betray my boy's memory a little more." She pressed the envelope into Nora's hands. "This won't bring my son back. But it'll save yours. And that's something." Nora stared at the money. "I'll pay you back." "No. You'll pay it forward. When someone else needs... You help them the way I'm helping you." She walked to her car, stopped, turned back. "Nora?" "Yes, that man. Ezra. He loves you. You know that, right?" Nora's cheeks flushed. Don't let him leave. Men like that run when they're scared. And he's scared. So hold on tight." Then she drove away. Nora stood there, holding $500. Holding a stranger's grief. Holding hope. Ellis ran up. "Mama? What is that?" She showed him. His eyes went wide. "That's not enough. But it's closer." They now had $2,600. They needed $3,200. Still $600 short. But for the first time, that number felt possible. That night, Lloyd knocked on the door late. Past 10, Nora answered. Ezra behind her. Lloyd looked grim. "We need to talk." They sat at the kitchen table. Ellis already asleep upstairs. Lloyd pulled out a newspaper. Old, yellowed. From 2 years ago, he pointed to an obituary. Matthias Ashford. Age 36. Died in riding accident. "I need to tell you something," Lloyd said. About how Matthias died. Nora went still. "It was an accident. His horse spooked. He fell, that's what the report said, but..." Lloyd looked at her long, hard. "But Vernon Hayes was there that day, on the property. Talking to Matthias about a loan." Ezra leaned forward. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Vernon offered to buy the farm. Matthias refused." They argued. And an hour later, Matthias's horse spooked and he died. Nora's face drained of color. "You think Vernon? I think it's convenient." "Too convenient? You have proof?" "No. But I have questions. And I should have asked them 2 years ago. I should have." His voice broke. Nora reached across the table. Took his hand. "It's not your fault, isn't it? I knew Vernon was dirty. I knew he'd done this before. And I stayed quiet because he's powerful. And I'm just an old man who runs a store. You're helping now. Now might be too late." Ezra spoke. "It's not too late, because we're going to stop him." Lloyd looked at him. "How?" "By beating him at his own game. He wants this land? He'll have to watch us keep it. And if you can't raise the money..." "We will. You're still 600 short, then we'll find 600. "Where?" Ezra didn't answer, because he didn't know. But he'd be damned if he let Vernon Hayes win. On day 88, Lloyd called a town meeting. Sunday after church. Everyone came. Vernon showed up in his best suit, smile fixed. Confident. He didn't know what was coming. Lloyd stood at the front of the meeting hall. Cleared his throat. "We're here to talk about Vernon Hayes. And what he's been doing to this town." Vernon's smile tightened. "Lloyd, I don't know what you think. Sit down." "Vernon." The room went silent, because Lloyd never raised his voice. Never, Vernon sat, Lloyd continued. 3 years ago, Vernon told the Taylor family their well was contaminated. Cost thousands to fix. They lost their farm, murmurs. The well needed a $40 pump, louder murmurs. 2 years ago, he told Nora Ashford her irrigation system needed complete replacement. $5,000. Vernon stood. That's not. It needed one pipe. 50 feet. Cost $40 to fix. The room erupted. Vernon's face went red. You have no proof. Margot stood up. Everyone turned. She walked to the front, pulled out the ledger, set it on the table. Here's your proof. Every property. Every lie. Every family. Vernon went white. Margot, what are you? I'm done, Vernon. Done being quiet. Done pretending. She opened the ledger. Started reading names. Dates. Properties. Lies one after another. The room was dead silent. When she finished, Vernon tried to speak. This is a misunderstanding. A clerical error. It's fraud, Lloyd said flatly. And everyone in this room knows it. One of the farmers stood. You tried to take my land 5 years ago. Told me my soil was contaminated. Another. You foreclosed on my brother. Said he owed twice what he did. Another. You're a thief, Vernon. Vernon looked around. Saw the faces. The anger, the walls closing in, he grabbed his coat. You'll all regret this. Every one of you. I own the bank. I control the mortgages. Not anymore. A voice said from the back. Everyone turned. A man in a dark suit stepped forward. Briefcase. Official looking. I'm Robert Sterling. State banking auditor. And as of this morning, Vernon Hayes is under investigation for fraud. His assets are frozen. His authority revoked. Vernon staggered. What? No, you can't. We can. And we did. Sterling looked at Nora. Mrs. Ashford, your debt has been placed under review. Until the investigation concludes, no foreclosure can proceed. Nora couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. How long? Ezra asked. 90 days minimum, 90 days, 3 months. Time. They had time. Vernon looked around wildly, then bolted for the door. No one stopped him. They just watched him go. And when the door slammed, the room erupted in cheers. That night, Nora sat on the porch, staring at the field, at the crops they'd saved, at the land they'd fought for. Ezra came out. Sat beside her. They didn't speak for a long time. Finally, we did it, we did. I still can't believe it. She looked at him. What happens now? You plant again in spring, harvest in fall, build the farm back up. And you? He was too quiet. Nora's chest tightened. Ezra, what happens with you? He looked at the mountains, at the dark line where they met the sky. I need to go back, he said quietly. Her heart stopped. What? To the mountain. Just for a few days. There are things I left behind. Tools, supplies. A life I need to close out properly, and then, he turned, met her eyes, and then I come back. If you'll still have me. Relief flooded through her. Of course I'll have you. But Ezra, I know. You're scared I won't come back. That I'll get up there and decide to stay, will you? No, how do I know that? Because I'm telling you. And I've never lied to you. She searched his face. 1 week. You get 1 week, I only need 3 days. 1 week. After that, I come looking for you. He smiled. Deal. She kissed him, then long, deep. The kind of kiss that says, don't you dare leave me. When they broke apart, Ezra rested his forehead against hers. I'll come back, Nora. I promise. You better. Because I love you all. And I'm not letting you go that easy. I love you too. And this time the words didn't stick. They flowed easy true. He left on day 90 early morning. Mist still hanging in the valley, his horse packed. His coat buttoned, Ellis stood on the porch, arms crossed, trying not to cry. You're really going? Just for a few days. What if you don't come back? Ezra crouched down. I'm coming back. How do I know? Because I made you a promise. And I keep my promises. Ellis's lip trembled. My dad made promises too, and he didn't come back. The words hit like a gut punch. Ezra pulled the boy close. Your dad didn't choose to leave you. I am choosing to come back. There's a difference. What difference? Your dad was taken. I'm just going to get my things and close a door I should have closed years ago. Then I'm coming home. This is home? Yes. Ellis hugged him tight. Okay. But if you're not back in a week, I'm coming to find you. Deal? Nora came out, eyes red. She and Ezra stood there, not touching, not speaking, just looking. Finally, she handed him something, a small cloth bundle. He unwrapped it. Bread, cheese, apples. The same things Lloyd had brought him that first night. For the road, she said. Thank you, Ezra. Yeah, come back to me. He kissed her, soft. Gentle, I will. Then he hit his horse and rode away. Nora and Ellis watched until he disappeared into the trees. Then Ellis spoke. He's coming back, right? Nora wiped her eyes. He better. Ezra reached the cabin on the second day. High up, 8,000 feet, trees thick. Air thin home, except it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a tomb. He dismounted, walked to the door. It hung crooked on its hinges. Snow had blown in through the cracks. Inside was cold, empty, the life he'd built here. The solitude he craved, it all felt hollow now. He gathered his tools, his traps, the few things worth taking, packed them on the horse, then stood there, looking at the cabin, at the place he'd hidden for 8 years. And he thought about the man who'd run up here, broken, angry, convinced he was better off alone. That man was gone, and in his place was someone different, someone who'd learned that hiding doesn't heal. That connection matters more than safety, that love even terrifying. Risky love is worth it. He pulled out a match, struck it, held it to the cabin wall. The old wood caught fast, flames spread, hungry, bright. Within minutes, the cabin was burning. Ezra stood back, watching it go, watching his past turn to ash. And when there was nothing left but embers, he mounted his horse and rode down the mountain, toward the valley, toward Nora, toward home. He came back on day 94, 4 days early. Nora was in the field when she saw him ride her. Coming down the road, her heart stopped. Please be him. Please. The rider got closer, long hair, broad shoulders. Ezra, she dropped the basket. Ran. Ellis saw from the porch, shouted. Ran too. They met him at the gate. Ezra dismounted. Nora threw herself into his arms. He caught her, held her tight. You came back. I told you I would. You're early. Couldn't stay away. Ellis crashed into them, arms around them both. You're back. You're really back. I'm really back. They stood there, the three of them, a family, not by blood but by choice. After a moment, Nora pulled back. Did you get everything you needed? I burned it. She blinked. What, the cabin? I burned it down. Why? He looked at her. At Ellis. At the farm behind them, because I don't need it anymore. This is home now. If you'll have me. Nora's eyes filled. Ezra Flint. Are you asking to stay? I'm asking for more than that. He reached into his coat, pulled out a ring, Sybil silver band, worn smooth. This was my mother's. Only thing I kept when I left home. I've been carrying it for 20 years. Waiting for someone worth giving it to. He held it out. Nora Ashford. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I love you. And I love your son. And I want to build a life here with you. If you'll marry me. Nora stared at the ring, at this man who'd walked down from a mountain to save them, who'd stayed when he could have left, who'd fought when he could have hidden. Yes, she said. Yes. Yes. He slid the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Ellis whooped. Does this mean Ezra's my dad now? Nora laughed through tears. Not yet. But soon. Good. Because I already told people at school he was. Ezra pulled the boy close. I'd be honored to be your dad, Ellis. Even though I'm kind of annoying? Especially because you're kind of annoying? They laughed. All three of them, standing in the middle of the road, in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of everything. They married in spring. Small ceremony. Just the town. Lloyd officiated. Margot stood as Nora's witness. Ellis as Ezra's. Vernon Hayes was gone. Vanished after the investigation started. Rumor said he fled east. Or west. Or south. No one really cared. His bank was sold. His assets liquidated. His victims compensated. And the Ashford farm debt? Forgiven entirely. Turned out Vernon had been inflating it illegally for 2 years. The real amount owed was $800, which Nora paid in full from the harvest money. With enough left over to buy new seed, new equipment, new hope. The wedding was simple. Nora wore a white dress. Simple cotton. Nothing fancy. Ezra wore a clean shirt. Shaved his beard down to something respectable. Ellis stood between them, grinning so hard his face hurt. Lloyd cleared his throat. We're here to witness the union of Ezra Flint and Nora Ashford. Two people who found each other when they needed it most. He looked at them. Ezra, do you take this woman to be your wife? I do, Nora. Do you take this man to be your husband? I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the state and by common sense, I pronounce you married. Kiss her already. Ezra did long. Deep, the crowd cheered. Ellis made a face. Gross, but he was smiling. 18 months later, the farm was thriving. 2 full harvests, both profitable. Enough to expand the orchard, buy cattle, hire seasonal help. Nora managed the business. Books, sales. Planning Ezra managed the land, irrigation, equipment. Building Ellis, now 14, managed the irrigation system himself, teaching younger kids in town how to fix pipes, how to read water, how to solve problems. On a Saturday morning in October, Nora stood on the porch, hand on her belly. 6 months pregnant, Ezra came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her. How are you feeling? Huge. You're beautiful. You're biased, completely. She leaned back into him. Do you ever regret coming down from the mountain? Never, not even a little, Nora. I spent 8 years alone, and I thought I was living. But I was just surviving this. You, Ellis, the farm, this, he put his hand over hers on her belly. This is living, she turned in his arms. I love you too. Ellis came running up, muddy, grinning. The east field is ready to plant, and I fixed the valve on the south line. And can I go to town with Lloyd? He's teaching me how to run the register. Nora laughed. Yes. But clean up first. I will. He ran inside. Ezra shook his head. That kid has more energy than 10 men. He's happy he is. They stood there, watching the field, the land they'd saved together, the life they'd built. Ezra? Yeah, thank you. For what? For stopping, for staying, for choosing us. He kissed her temple. Thank you for giving me something worth choosing. And in the distance, the mountains rose dark, silent, beautiful. The place Ezra had run to all those years ago, the place he'd left behind. And he felt no regret. Because some mountains are meant to climb, and some are meant to leave. And the hardest part isn't knowing which is which. It's having the courage to walk away from the wrong one, and toward the right one. Toward home, the years unfolded. Ellis became a civil engineer, specializing in irrigation, helping farmers across 3 states. Ezra and Nora had 2 more children, a daughter they named Margot, a son they named Matthias. They lived on that land for 47 years. Vernon Hayes vanished. No one looked for him. Lloyd ran his store until he was 93. Died peacefully in his sleep. Margot Hayes divorced Vernon in absentia, opened a women's shelter, saved 17 families. And the land? The land kept giving, season after season, because good land doesn't die when good people tend it. The end.